Hi, I'm Annie Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington Realtors legal hotline lawyer. And today we're going to discuss teams. And we're going to break up this discussion into two videos. Today's discussion of teams is going to look at two questions. The first being, when must a team have a managing member as one of its team members? And number two, when can a team advertise in its own team name? First question, must a team have a managing broker? If there is a person on the team who is exercising control or giving direction to other brokers who are team members in the performance of real estate brokerage services, that person has to be a managing member. What the law actually says, and this comes out of the licensing law, is that a person who supervises or exercises control over a broker in the performance of real estate brokerage services must have a managing broker's license. Let's break that down. Supervises or exercises control. What does that look like? What does that mean? A team leader may supervise or exercise control, for example, if the team leader instructs some members that they will be buyer brokers and other members that they will be listing brokers. They might be supervising or exercising control if they tell brokers where they'll hold open house, where the broker will hold open house on a particular weekend, or when the broker will hold floor for their team, or et cetera, et cetera. When directive is given by a team leader, that in many cases is going to look like supervision or exercise of control. But the licensing law requirement goes on. It's when a person supervises or exercises control over a real estate broker. So, if the supervision or exercise of control is over only an unlicensed assistant supporting the team, for example, the supervision or exercise of control being to say that the unlicensed assistant should input information into the MLS computer, for example. That would not be the exercise or supervision of a real estate broker, because that person who's receiving the instruction is not licensed. If that were all that were happening, a managing broker's license wouldn't be required. So take it out of the team context for a second and look just at the idea of a broker having an assistant, the support of an assistant. If the assistant is unlicensed, and if the assistant is unlicensed, that necessarily means they can't provide real estate brokerage services. So if the assistant is unlicensed, the broker who uses the support or who even directs and supervises that unlicensed assistant does not have to have a managing broker's license. All right, let's look at the next part of the definition. Supervises or exercises control over a real estate broker in the performance of real estate brokerage services. What is the definition of real estate brokerage services? Real estate brokerage services is defined in the licensing law. It's in the very first section of the licensing law under definitions. And it includes such things as buying, selling, listing, leasing, real estate. If the team leader exercises or supervises control by telling one of the broker team members, a licensed broker team member, to go list XYZ property, then that team leader would be exercising or supervising control over a broker in the provision of real estate brokerage services. If the team leader meets all three categories or all three criteria within this licensing law requirement, then that team leader must have a managing broker's license. There is one exception to the rule of a team having a managing broker as a team member, and that exception comes when the team consists of a married couple only. The Department of Licensing has said that if the team consists of two married persons, then neither team member must have a managing broker's license, notwithstanding the supervision or exercise of control. Now, real estate brokers can be very clever, and I get questions from time to time about what if we did this or what if we did that, ways of trying to hide the ball, if you will, as to whether or not the person acting as a team leader is really supervising, exercising control over a broker with respect to real estate brokerage services. The Department of Licensing is probably almost as clever as real estate brokers and can pierce schemes that are designed to get around the law requirement, the licensing law requirement to have a managing broker's license. So view this in a walks like a duck, talks like a duck kind of scenario. If the team leader is in fact supervising and exercising control over a real estate broker in the provision of real estate brokerage services, then that team leader has to have a managing broker's license. It's that simple. Next question, can a team advertise in its own name? What the licensing law says about advertising is that every advertisement must include the firm's name as licensed. There are requirements if you're in social media, or I'm sorry, if you're in internet advertising or social media advertising, there's a requirement to include the broker's name as licensed as well. But the general advertising requirement is that all advertising must include the firm's name as licensed. If you are a team member and you're licensed to ABC firm and you are XYZ team, question is, can I advertise as XYZ team and skip ABC firm? Understand that before we even get to the licensing law component, your firm may have a rule about this. Your firm, in many cases, will have a requirement that says any advertising by any broker licensed to this firm must include the firm's name as licensed. And if your firm has that rule, then that's the answer to the question. If your firm doesn't have that policy and you want to advertise in the name of your team only, XYZ team as opposed to ABC firm, you can do that so long as your firm has what's known as an assumed name license. Your firm has to actually go get the assumed name license from the Department of Licensing. The assumed name license belongs to the firm. So if your team leaves ABC firm and goes to LMNOP firm, then ABC firm gets to keep your team name. But that's the only way that you can advertise in your team name to the exclusion of a firm name. Now, if you want to advertise in the name of both your team and your firm, then you don't need an assumed name license, because then the firm's name as licensed is still present on the advertising. That's round one of the team's discussion. Tune in next week for the second part of this discussion on teams. And in the meantime, if you have questions on this or any other topic, please send those questions to me at legalhotline@warealtor.org. Thank you for being a Realtor member.